I've been on the road for most of my life. I'm a long-haul truck driver, and if there's one thing this job teaches you, it's sacrifice. For years, I worked endless nights, sleeping in motels, eating at truck stops, all so my family could have a better life. When our first child was born, I looked at my wife and said, "You don't need to work anymore. Let me carry the load. You stay home and raise our children. I'll handle the bills." She hesitated at first. She had dreams of her own, but in the end she agreed. She became the heart of our home while I became the engine that kept it running. And she did her part beautifully. Every time I came back from a trip, the house was spotless, the kids were smiling, and she always made sure there was a warm meal waiting for me on the table. She stretched every dollar I sent home, managing the family's needs so carefully that I often wondered how she did it. I used to brag about her to the other drivers on the road. "My wife is solid," I'd say. "She's holding it down while I'm gone. She's the reason I can do this job without worry, but you know, sometimes life has a way of showing you cracks in the walls you thought were unbreakable." And before I go further, if you've ever been in love, if you've ever trusted someone so much that you'd bet your whole life on them, then subscribe to this channel. Because here, we share real stories of love, loyalty, and sometimes betrayal. The kind of truths people keep hidden. Life settled into a rhythm. I'd be gone for weeks at a time, hauling loads across states, and when I returned, my wife made sure everything felt like home again. She would hug me tight at the door. The kids would scream, "Daddy's back." And for those few days, the world felt perfect. Sometimes I'd leave her extra money, telling her to buy herself something nice, a dress, maybe shoes. She always smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'll use it wisely." And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my partner, the mother of my children, the woman I trusted more than anyone else in this world. My buddies on the road used to warn me. They'd say, "Man, don't you worry she gets lonely? Don't you wonder what she does when you're not around?" I'd laugh it off. "Not my wife, she's different, she loves me too much." And for years I believed that without question, until one night everything changed. My wife, she was the kind of woman people noticed when she walked into a room, not because she dressed fancy or spoke loudly, but because she carried herself with grace. She had this quiet strength about her, the type that made you believe everything was going to be all right no matter what. She loved the kids fiercely. I'd watch her sit at the table with them, helping with homework even when she was tired. She taught them patience, kindness, and respect. The truth is, she was raising them better than I ever could, and I was proud of her for that. When I was on the road, she was the one answering every school call, attending every parent meeting, and making sure the house never lacked anything. She made our home feel alive, flowers on the table, curtains always clean, meals always warm. And it wasn't just about the family. She cared for me in ways that words can't fully explain. Before each trip, she would pack me small notes in my bag. A simple "I love you" written on a sticky note, or "Drive safe, we need you." Those little pieces of paper kept me company on nights when the road felt endless. To me, she wasn't just my wife. She was my anchor, my safe place, the woman I believed would never let me down. If you asked anyone in our neighborhood about my wife, they would tell you she was a woman of virtue. She wasn't loud, she wasn't flashy, but she had a presence that made people respect her. The other women admired her because she could manage a home with so little and still make it feel like a palace. I'd send money home, and she would stretch it in ways I never understood. Somehow, the bills got paid, the kids had what they needed, and she still found ways to make the house look beautiful. I often joked that she could make a meal out of nothing but rice and magic. The men in the neighborhood respected her too. She wasn't the kind of wife who lingered outside gossiping. No, she carried herself with dignity. If I was gone for a month, she handled things on her own, never once making me feel like I was failing as a husband. And when I was home, she never let me lift a finger. She'd say, "You've worked enough on the road. Sit, rest. Let me take care of you." And she meant it. I'd watch her move around the kitchen, humming to herself, serving me like I was the king of her world. Nights with her were always tender. We'd lie in bed talking about the kids' future, making promises of what we'd do when I finally retired from trucking. She'd tell me she was proud of me, that she couldn't have chosen a better man. That was my wife, or at least that's who I believed she was, but over time I began to notice little things. At first, they didn't feel like much, so small that I convinced myself I was imagining it. For example, she used to call me every night when I was on the road, just to check in, Sometimes it was about the kids, sometimes it was just to hear my voice. But lately, the calls became less frequent. When I asked, she'd laugh it off and say, "Oh, I was just too tired. You know how the kids keep me busy." And I believed her, at first. Then there were her moods. My wife was always cheerful, even under pressure. But one day I called and her tone was different. Sharp, defensive, almost like I'd interrupted something. When I asked if everything was okay, she quickly brushed it off with a laugh, but I could hear it in her voice. Something wasn't right. I also noticed she started dressing differently. Nothing dramatic, but enough for me to take note. She used to be comfortable in her home clothes, simple and modest. But suddenly, she was buying new outfits. I asked once, jokingly, "Who are you getting all dressed up for?" She smiled and said, "For you, of course." I wanted to believe her. God knows I wanted to. But deep down, a quiet voice started whispering to me. A voice I kept trying to silence. One night, I was hauling a load across state lines when my phone rang. It was my wife. Her voice sounded shaky, rushed. She told me the kids weren't feeling well and that she was worried. Normally, she was calm in these situations, but this time, something in her tone felt off. I told her not to worry, that I'd try to make it home as soon as I could. Truth is, my run was almost done anyway. Instead of heading to the company yard like usual, I decided to come straight home. I wanted to surprise her, maybe cheer her up, remind her that she wasn't alone in all this. On the way, I stopped by the supermarket to pick up a few things. Some medicine for the kids, her favorite snacks, even a bouquet of flowers. I thought maybe she just needed comfort, a reminder that I still put her first. I dialed her number while standing in the aisle, just to let her know I was bringing a few things home. And that's when it happened. The moment she heard my voice, she froze. I told her, "Baby, I'm stopping by the store real quick before I head home." There was silence. Then her voice trembled as she asked, "You're on your way home, right now?" Something inside me shifted. I know my wife's voice. I know when she's happy, sad, nervous. And in that moment, she wasn't just surprised. She was scared. I tried to shake it off, told myself maybe she was just tired or was stressed, but deep down, I felt it. Something was wrong in my own home. I got to the house a little past 9 p.m. The lights were on, but the place felt different. Usually, when I come home unexpectedly, the kids run to the door screaming, "Daddy!" and my wife's face lights up. But this time, it wasn't like that. She opened the door slowly. She had a smile on her face, but her eyes told another story. They darted left and right like she was checking something. The kids weren't even in the living room. I hugged her, handed her the bag from the store. She said, "You should have told me you were coming home. I would have prepared something." We sat for a while. The house was clean, maybe too clean, and it was quiet. She tried to make small talk, but I couldn't stop thinking about that tremble in her voice earlier. Something didn't add up. That night, while she slept, I walked around the house slowly, thinking. I looked at the living room, the hallway, the kids' rooms. And for the first time in years, I felt like a stranger in my own home. That's when the idea came. Not out of anger, but out of desperation. If there was nothing going on, I'd have peace of mind. If there was, at least I'd know the truth. So the next morning, I drove to an electronics store and bought a small hidden camera. I placed it carefully in the living room, angled toward the front door and couch, the two places people always sit or pass through. I didn't tell my wife. I didn't tell anyone. Every time I went back on the road after that, I left the camera running, waiting, hoping my gut was wrong. A week later, I hit the road again. I tried to push the thoughts out of my mind, tried to focus on the long miles ahead of me. But every night in that truck, all I could think about was the small black camera sitting quietly in my living room, watching, listening, waiting. When I finally got back home, I pretended everything was normal. I kissed my wife, hugged the kids, ate the dinner she had prepared. But late that night, when everyone was asleep, I pulled out the memory card from the camera and slipped it into my laptop. At first it was nothing. Just hours of silence, the kids playing, my wife folding clothes, cooking, moving around the house. I started to feel guilty. Maybe I was overthinking. Maybe I was just being paranoid. But then, I saw it one afternoon just 2 days after I'd left. The door opened. And it wasn't the kids. It wasn't a family member. It was a man. Tall, confident. He walked in like he'd been there before. My wife greeted him. Not with surprise, not with the shock of someone who wasn't expecting a visitor. No, she smiled. A smile I hadn't seen in years. A smile that used to be reserved only for me. My chest tightened as I watched. They sat together on the couch, close, too close. Their voices were low, their laughter soft. Then I saw her reach out and touch his arm, and in that moment my entire world began to crumble. I paused the video, my hands trembling over the keyboard. My chest felt heavy, like someone was sitting on it. That smile, that touch. It wasn't friendly, it wasn't innocent. It was something else. I shut the laptop for a moment and just sat there in the dark. My wife, the woman I trusted with my life, the woman I believed could never hurt me. She had just welcomed another man into our home. A part of me wanted to storm into the bedroom, wake her up, and demand answers right there. But another part of me didn't want to believe it. I kept telling myself, maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's just a friend. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. But deep down I knew. The way she looked at him, I hadn't seen that look in years. And the truth was, it wasn't me she was saving it for anymore. Still, I needed to be sure. I couldn't confront her with just one clip. I had to know the whole story, no matter how much it hurt. So I pressed play again. The man leaned back on the couch, comfortable, like this wasn't his first time here. My wife brought him a drink, not in a rush, not like a host serving a stranger, but with the ease of someone who'd done it before. She laughed at something he said, her hand brushing his shoulder as she set the glass down. My heart pounded harder with every second. This wasn't friendship. This wasn't a neighbor dropping by. This was something else. Minutes later, I saw her do something that froze me. She leaned in close, whispering something in his ear. He smiled, then rested his hand on her thigh. And she didn't push him away. She didn't flinch. She let it happen. My throat went dry. I kept watching, even though every part of me wanted to slam the laptop shut. Their laughter turned into silence. The silence turned into touches, familiar touches, the kind that were once mine. And then, right there on the couch where my kids watched cartoons, where we celebrated birthdays, where I thought love still lived, my wife kissed him. I waited until the kids were asleep. The house was quiet, but my mind was racing. I carried the laptop into the living room and placed it on the table, the video still paused at the last frame. My hands shook. My chest felt like it was going to explode. When she came out of the kitchen, humming softly, I said nothing at first. I just gestured to the laptop. Her eyes fell on the screen, and for a moment, she froze. I pointed at it again. "Do you want to explain this?" My voice was low, controlled, but it trembled anyway. She took a step back. Her lips quivered. Tears welled up in her eyes. It's not what you think," she stammered. I laughed, not with joy, but from the sharp sting of pain. "Not what I think. Do you see this? Do you see what I see?" She started crying, shaking her head. "I didn't mean for it to go this far. I was lonely, and you were always gone. I never wanted to hurt you." Every excuse was like a knife twisting deeper into my chest. I wanted to scream, to hit, to run. But I didn't. I just sat there, broken, staring at the woman I thought I knew my whole life. The woman I trusted completely. And then she said something that cut even deeper. "Please, don't leave us. Don't break this family." I looked at her. I looked at the kids' rooms. I looked at the life I had built with her. And I realized I had a choice. Forgive her and try to rebuild, or walk away and never look back. I sat there in silence, staring at her tears, her trembling hands, and the life we had built together. Everything I had believed, everything I had trusted, felt like it had been ripped away in front of my eyes. She begged me not to leave, not to destroy the family. But at that moment, I wasn't thinking about forgiveness. I wasn't thinking about reconciliation. My mind was clear, sharp and cold. I would make her feel the weight of what she had done, not in anger, not in violence, but in a way she could never forget, a way that would stay with her every single day she looked at me. The wife I once trusted, the woman I adored, had crossed a line, and now I was no longer the man who would quietly watch and hope it went away. Revenge had taken root in my heart, and from that moment, every move I made, every word I spoke, it would be calculated. I had made my choice, and she would soon learn that betrayal comes with a price.